Good night, everyone. Tonight, God is good and God is good all the time. My name is Amy J. Space Divine. I'm here to give you the show news and the word on tonight. We're going to talk about this 16-year-old boy was murdered by his own father. Lee Wells, Everdale, released by the Polk County Sheriff. Office reveal new disturbing, details in the murder of Stephen Lee. Who deputies said was killed by his own father. Now, this happened like 5 days ago. According to the sheriff's office, the murder scene was discovered by the victim's grandfather. Now Thomas, who was returning home from visiting his wife at the Palm Garden Center before, going inside the home around 11 o'clock, the victim's grandfather was met by the suspect who asked for a cigarette. He asked his grandfather for a cigarette before he given him a warning, before he go into the house. Now his quote was, I wouldn't go in there if I was you. I killed someone and you might need to call 911. That sounds like someone is sick. Like this is a game. So the 60-year-old victim was found inside the dining area of the home, visually bruised and hit his son. He hit his son in the head with an angle grinder. That's one of them big old tools. So hard. Hit it so hard that it broke. And I pulled it up. This tool is so big. Which was found next to the teenager body. Now the deputy later had found Stephen Thomas on a highway 60 mile near where his grandfather was at. So the road on the north side, he had blood. When they found him, he had blood, on his jeans, flesh in the right hand of the index finger, according to the authority. So they found him, so the statement during his interview, the victim father, Stephanie Thomas, said he thought his son died years ago. Now, he thought his son died years ago. So I guess he found out his son's still alive. You know, so confliction and statements. So he said other stuff during the interview. So the suspect was charged with first-degree murder. After his arrest, he is being held on no bond. So our prayers, go out to the family. This is very disturbing, terrible, tragic news. Now, we don't know, what was on his mind at the time. Someone have to be sick in their mind to kill their own son, for no reason, because they didn't give him no reason, so we don't know why. He killed him. Now, he made a statement that he thought his son was dead years ago. So this man hit his son with a big tool, an angle grinder, where it broke. So I mean, he hit this boy so hard, so this big old tool broke. So he need life sentence with no parole. He intentionally wanted to kill this boy. He told it, and then they say in the interview he was just talking like he didn't mean no harm. He wanted to do it. He didn't feel no sorrow or anything for what he did. So he need life sentence with no parole. Because he admit he killed his son, and he don't have no regret that he did it. Oh, Lord have mercy. I don't even know what's going on these days doing this to these kids. So we gon' I have an update on inflation. Annual inflation rate, for the United States was 3.2%. So that's still pretty good, for the 12 months ending. So July, according to the United States Labor Department, data published on August the 10th. So this followed, a rate of 3.0% in the previous period. Now, I have a chart here from 2013 to 2023. So 2013 it was 1.5%. So that was real good. So 2014 it was 0.8%. So 2015 it was 0.7%. So we were doing good. We was doing good back then. So 2016, 2.1%. That was good. 2017, 2.1%. So we had 2016 and 17 with the same rate. So 2018 with 1.9%. That was good. So we had all these good numbers here. And 2019 we had 2%, 2.3%. In 2020 we had 1.4%. 2021 we had 7%. So then we got to 2022 last year, 6.5%. But down the line it had went up to 9%. So we see 2022 was the highest numbers that we had between 12 months. And 2023, we had 3.2%. That's pretty good too. Now, so the only year we had a high number was 2022. So that's the update on the page. And we talk about the 16-year-old boy got murdered. He got murdered from his own father. Oh Lord, that's terrible. So I have a word for y'all tonight. Now Jesus in the miracles catch a fish. John 21 verse 1 to 14. Now Jesus returned after 3 days of his resurrection. So now Jesus about appeared to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. Now Simon Peter, Thomas, and 2 other disciples were together. So afterwards Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened in this way. So after Jesus 3 days from returning from his death, a group of disciples. Now he saw some of the disciples. So he went to meet all the rest of his disciples. So Simon Peter, Thomas from Cana to Galilee, the son. When Jesus had spoke to several women, surely, after his 3 days after death, he passed along instruction, meant for the disciples. They should meet him in Galilee. So I'm going out to fish. So why are they waiting on Jesus? They decide, we're gonna get on a boat. Let's go fishing. So Simon Peter had told them, and they said, we'll go with you. So they went out and they got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. So they was on the boat all night long. Caught themselves fishing. And they couldn't catch nothing. Couldn't catch nothing at all. So prior to being called by Christ, many of the disciples were fishermen. After his 3 days arise from that, Jesus had told the men to meet him in their home, of Galilee. So Peter, he once again take charge and plan to resume fishing. So he decided he wants to go fishing. Now see, the rest of the brothers, they were fishermen. Even though they were fishermen, they still couldn't catch nothing at all. So early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize, that was him. They didn't realize, but they're going to recognize his word, but they ain't going to realize that's him. So the disciples knew not that it was Jesus, though he was so near them that they could hear him. They can hear him, what he said, but it was not being broad daylight, and they could not discern him. Or their eyes might be held that they could not know him. So Christ is sometimes Christ can be near us, and we still won't know, because he always with us at all times. That's what he told his disciples. He told the disciples before he about to depart again a second time. He said, I'm always going to be near y'all all the time. So he called out to them, friends, haven't you caught any fish? He see them fishing. So he called out, did y'all catch anything? You know. So they was out all night long, and Jesus had saw them fishing. So that's why he asked them, y'all caught anything? Because you see, they ain't never got out the boat. They're still in the boat with the net in the water. So they answered no. They answered no. We have not caught anything. So they answered him no. They have caught nothing at all. So or at least what they had was far from being enough to make it breakfast. They were trying to fix some breakfast, fix some fish. So since I was putting this together last night, I said I was gonna wake up this morning and have me some fish and grits. So for a meal early in the morning may be most properly called, though it is afterwards called dining. So they're trying to get some fish to make some breakfast. So now they say they caught nothing. Now he said, throw your net. So Jesus said, throw your net on the right hand side, you know, on the right hand side of the boat, and you will find some. And when they did, they were unable to haul the net because of the large number of fish. You see what I'm saying? They was fishing all night long, and they couldn't catch nothing. It took a spiritual person like Jesus, to say, throw that net on the right hand side. Y'all, all night long, y'all been throwing it on the left hand side. Okay, let's try this on the right hand side. So they throw it on the right hand side. They obeyed Jesus and throw it on the right hand side. And they caught so much, not small fish, big old large fish. So they caught so much fish. It was hard for them to try to pull that net back up the boat. So Jesus is trying to let us know that sometimes we could do things our way, and in one way we will come up empty-handed. So he, all night long they were doing it their way on the left hand side. So Jesus said, okay, we're gonna try this. We're gonna try this again. Try this throwing it on the right hand side. And sometimes we have to do. I'm talking to myself. Sometimes we have to get out the box. Sometimes, I'm talking to myself too, because sometimes we get comfortable of doing things the same way. They was comfortable doing it the same way. All night long. They kept on throwing on the left hand side. It took Jesus to come along. Okay, let's try this again. Let's try throw it on the right hand side. But Jesus had told them another way. Throw it on the right hand side, and they obeyed Jesus, and they soon found their net closed to breaking because of all the fish they had caught. Now this is a miracle. This is a miracle. They knew it was Jesus. After they caught all that fish was in their net. Because see, they heard the verse, but they still couldn't recognize if that was Jesus or not. When they saw that miracle, because see, he did a similar miracle that he just got through feeding 5,000 people. So it was similar to what he just did. So when they saw they caught all that fish, they knew it was Jesus. They knew it was Jesus, because they just come from Jesus feeding 5,000 people with what, 2 fish, 2 bread. So then the disciples who Jesus loved said to Peter, it is the Lord. As soon as Simon Peter heard him say that, it is the Lord, he wrapped his other garment around him, for he took it off and he jumped in the water. He loved Jesus. So when he heard them saying it may be Jesus, he jumped up in that water to go meet Jesus. So only John, the disciple who Jesus loved, recognized. John was the only one that recognized Jesus in the dim morning light, undoubtable, because Jesus had performed a similar miracle earlier. See, he did a miracle with the fish. The boy came along with 2 fish, and I think they had like 2 bread. But he fed 5,000 people with 2 fish. That accumulated so much fish that where they had leftovers. So when he did that miracle there, he automatically know that's Jesus. That's Jesus. Let me take off my clothes. Let me jump in this water and go meet Jesus. So the other disciples had followed in a boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from the shore, about 100 yards from Jesus, where Jesus was at. So the other disciples had came in a little fishing boat, dragging the net with fishes, probably because it was too heavy to lift up into the boat. They got so much fish. So they're trying to lift the net up to put it on the boat, because they got in the smaller boat, because the rest of them took the other boat to go meet Jesus. So when they landed, they saw the fire of burning coal. There was a fish on it and some bread. So you see, here we go again, just on the fish and the bread. And Jesus just did a miracle earlier, of the fish and the bread. So Jesus had predicted how Peter, would die, by crucifixion. Coals of fire is a measure for pain, affliction, meaning by feeding your hungry enemy and giving them to drink, you will remove a serious affliction from your head. And Peter renewed his faith. So Jesus was Jesus was telling him this. Jesus had predicted death on his life, but then he renewing his faith. He doing this procedure here and remove all any affliction that's on your head. So Jesus had said to them, bring some of the fish that you have just caught. Because Jesus about to fix some breakfast. You about to fix some breakfast. Y'all been fishing all day long, and y'all ain't caught nothing. I'm hungry. Let's fix some breakfast. So Jesus had said to them, some of the fish you have just caught. So Simon Peter, they climbed back into the boat and dragged the net offshore, and it was full of large fish. Full of large fish. They caught 153 fish from all night, caught nothing. But now you got 153 fish. But even with so many, the net did not break. You see what I'm saying? That's a miracle. That's a miracle. They caught 153 fish. Not small fish, just big fish. And the net did not break. That's a miracle. When you could catch all that fish and you still have a net that did not break, So now, they were fishing all night long and caught nothing. But Jesus spoke, throwing it on the right hand side. So they obeyed, and they caught large fish of overflow. And that's how God will do. God will have everything running over. Now Jesus told them to throw it on the right hand side until they got fish overflowing. Fish is overflowing, and they caught 103 fish. But all the fish they caught, the net did not break. And sometimes we get comfortable doing things the way we want to do it, and that's why they wasn't catching nothing. So Jesus said, we're going to throw it on another side, throw it on the right hand side. But they obeyed Jesus. The net was overflowing, and the net did not break. So Jesus had said to them, Jesus had said, come, let's have breakfast. Let's have breakfast. None of the disciples dared to ask him who you are. They knew it was the Lord, but they were scared to make sure. So Jesus said, come on, eat breakfast. And they started like mumbling among themselves. We're trying to figure, is that him? Is that him? Won't you ask? That's him? They were trying to make sure. So this was they were mumbling among themselves. So all the miracles Jesus did, they still asked if that's Jesus. So they was like in doubt. They were like, there's no need to ask since it's clear. And then the other one said, men believe this is Jesus, but they tempted to act. They were scared to act, just to be sure, but they going in to eat breakfast. So they don't know that Jesus or not, but Jesus said, come eat breakfast. They going to eat breakfast. So they going to eat breakfast, no matter if they're not Jesus or not. So Jesus came and took the bread, and give it to them, and did the same with the fish, just like he did earlier with the other miracle. Before he fed everybody, he took that fish and that bread and he broke it and blessed it. So Jesus distributed both bread and fish to his disciples, a spiritual sense that he provide plenty, for his people. Give them to eat of the hidden manna. So this was now the third time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. Jesus showed himself to his disciples after he was raised, from the dead, but by the month of 2 or 3 witnesses. Now see what happened when he died and he rose back up. He couldn't go straight up. Everything had to have witness. Everything had to be established, and everything else that this procedure had worked. That it was real. Before he went back up. So they said they had 2 or 3 witnesses. Everything is established. So by Christ, to his disciples, to his resurrection, from the dead was confirmed. They had to confirm everything. Jesus showed himself to his disciples. After that, he was raised from the dead. By the month of 2 or 3 witnesses. By the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. He had to have witness. Everything is established. So by the Christ of his disciples, his resurrection from the dead was confirmed. And then he was ready to go back up. See, he had to have witness that all that he went through was real. He didn't want to be questioned or history. Because see, he was history. He was making history. So he couldn't go back up until everything was confirmed. So that's when he gonna start talking to disciples, equipping them what they're supposed to do to continue on doing this and that, and then he was going back up. So the reason of raising back from the dead, by he making history, everything had to be confirmed that it was true, that it was real. Everything had to be established and be confirmed that all he did was true and it was real, before he went back up. So that's all the news and the word that I have for you on today. We talk about the inflation update. It's 3.2%, and that was good. And I also give y'all a chart from 2013 up until now to 2023. And only year we had a high rate was last year. It was 6.7%, but down the line it turned out to be 9%. So that's why everything last year was just so high. And the rest of the months, everything was good. Everything was good. And then I see 2021, we had 7%. So that was kind of high also. So we had 2021 and 2022 were kind of high numbers. The rest of the months and today everything is good. We just had 2 months of high numbers, was 2021 and 2022. So we also talk about this 16-year-old boy. 16-year-old boy was murdered by his own father. You got to be sick. He hit this boy so hard with this big old tool, till the tool had broke. It broke. So we don't know exactly what went on his mind or why he decided he wants to kill his son. He said somebody he thought his son was dead years ago, but that's still not no excuse. So you feel like he wasn't dead, so you feel like you want to kill him to make sure he's dead. That's it. That's it. So I had requested he need to serve, a life sentence, because he don't feel no regret. He didn't feel no regret. He thought he was dead years ago, so I guess he had wanted to finish it off. So and so we just talk about Jesus and raising from the dead after 3 days. Now early on, he had served 5,000 people with 2 fish and 2 bread. And then he told the rest of the disciples to meet him at Galilee. So while they're waiting on Jesus, they decide to go fishing, and fish all night long and have not caught nothing. So Jesus had came a little, Jesus waited on the other side of the shore, but they were still able to hear his voice. He said, did y'all caught anything? They said no. So he said, well, throw your net on the right hand side. They obeyed Jesus and caught so much fish. They caught 153 fish. Big old large fish. And all that big old large fish did not break their net. That was a miracle. That was a miracle to catch 153 fishes, and the net did not break. So that's all the news and words I have for y'all today. Y'all have a blessed day, and I see y'all in the next video.